Hey everyone, this is What If Fan. While reviewing the earlier videos, I noticed a few issues, so I've gone ahead and made corrections. This is the second part of the revised version of What If There Was a Different Luffy. You can find the fanfic's title and the original author's name in the description below, so be sure to check it out and support the creator. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Alright, let's dive in. Chapter 11, Heading to Orange Town. Monkey D, Luffy POV. Shell City, East Blue. Yo Zoro, I see you got the treasures. Luffy couldn't help but smile when he saw Zoro with his swords at his side and a bag of gold behind him as Luffy walked out of the main gate of the base alone. He noticed that his companion was still surrounded by Marines, but none of them seemed to want to do anything against them now, with defeated looks on their faces. I guess so. Zoro grumbled, dissatisfied. He ended up not doing anything while Luffy fought and destroyed the Marine base all by himself. He felt a little bad about it since, in the end, he was reduced to being a pack mule by his captain. Ignoring his new crewmate, Luffy turned to the Marines and spoke with enthusiasm, not appearing as if they were mortal enemies, and he offered a friendly smile to their dejected faces. With that, we're leaving. Thanks for everything, Marines. I hope you won't abuse your people anymore, understood? Oh, one more thing, there's a pink-haired boy who will come to enlist soon. My grandfather, who is a vice-admiral, will come to take care of him. So make sure to welcome him until the old man arrives. The Marine who accompanied me to the Den Mushi will answer any of your questions, so goodbye. I said to the Marines in a friendly manner. This guy just destroyed a part of the base, killed our commander, and stole our gold, not to mention that by contacting the headquarters, we've lost our dignity. How can he act like we're friends right now? All the Marines had this thought. How could they feel okay about it? But Luffy didn't care. Luffy then turned towards the direction of the destroyed gate with Zoro behind him. I think things are going to change a bit with these actions, unlike the original. In the original, Luffy cut off all ties with Kobe after Morgan was defeated, but I'm different from the original and wouldn't try to hide the brief moment he had with Kobe. But to make Kobe have the same fate as the original, since that was his dream, he personally made that call to his grandfather and wanted to meet the old man on purpose. With his actions here, Kobe might not fall into the hands of his grandfather, so he directly contacted that man to talk about the boy. Kobe had a lot of potential, and the Marines would never suspect a direct pupil under the care of the Marine hero as a spy, which would be impossible to go unnoticed by my grandfather if that were the case. I say he has a chance to fit in as a spy because the boy had my recommendation and a history of spending a few years on Alvida's ship. Some suspicions could naturally arise. Ignoring the Marines, Luffy turned his attention back to Zoro. Let's go, Zoro. We have to see our other crewmates who are waiting for us, and there's a big surprise among them. I'm sure your eyes will pop out with this. Luffy said with mystery and an encouraging smile. Zoro saw that but didn't ask any more questions. He simply followed them, his face filled with a sense of defeat. Then the pair walked through the destroyed crater that used to be the old gate and saw a large crowd gathered outside at the moment. The explosion had drawn the entire city's attention, and almost everyone had come to see what was happening and the destruction caused at the Marine base. What happened here? Why are only these two coming out of there so calmly? That's Roronoa Zoro, the man captured by Morgan's son. Poor guy, he was just defending a little girl. Speaking of which, I don't think Morgan would just let him leave like that. Especially carrying gold. Who's that with him? He's all tattooed. He's so handsome. What a handsome man. Marry me. You have a tendency to attract attention, huh? Zoro, next to Luffy, couldn't help but comment as he saw the women suddenly shouting things to his captain, while the men felt jealous and uncomfortable. TSK, I already have my women. I can't pay attention to everyone I see. Luffy said, smiling at him. But before he could respond, a little girl emerged from the crowd and came towards the pair. You managed to get free? I'm so happy. She asked cheerfully. I believe so. Zoro said bashfully. Rika. A woman came from the crowd, calling the girl. "Mom, he's free." She pointed to Zoro and said again, "Let's invite him to the restaurant." "I don't think that's a good idea." Luffy intervened this time. "Huh? We're being pursued for attacking a marine base and killing Morgan, their commander. So we're leaving." "Morgan is dead?" The crowd that heard this quickly asked in astonishment. "Yes, now let's go, Zoro," Luffy said, leaving the people with this information and walking directly to the city's port. He knew people would be happy to hear this information, but he wanted to get out of this city as soon as possible. It's a race against time on every island Luffy visited in the original, and Nami, Usopp, and Sanji were in some degree of danger if he took too long. Not to mention that his grandfather was likely now preparing to set sail from the headquarters to come to the East Blue, wanting to put him in Impel Down. Ha ha ha. Will I finally have my own bounty? I believe you'll have one too after today, Luffy commented as they walked through the streets. Maybe, it's highly likely given the commotion you caused today, Zoro grumbled. Yeah, but I doubt it'll be very high since we're in the East Blue, and we only attacked one base, Luffy reflected. As people celebrated, Luffy and Zoro made their way to a dock at the port. There was a boat arriving in the city with a solitary Kobe rowing it. "Hello, Kobe. You took a long time," Luffy couldn't help but comment suddenly as he approached the boy. Kobe, who was tying the boat to one of the dock pillars absent-mindedly, was startled by Luffy's sudden voice behind him. "Ah! Luffy! And Zoro?" The boy was even more frightened with Zoro by Luffy's side. "Zoro, stop scaring the kids," Luffy simply said as he smiled at Kobe. "Who's scaring the kids?" Zoro was indignant. "Ha ha ha ha. Look at him, Zoro. He's clearly afraid of you." Luffy made a joke, having fun with the situation. "Seeing it that way, he doesn't seem to know what kind of monster you are," Zoro muttered. Ignoring Zoro, Luffy's attention returned to the timid boy in front of him. "Kobe, you're going to enlist in this marine base. I've talked to them, and they'll take care of you until my grandfather picks you up, understood?" Luffy said. "Huh? Seriously? Who's your grandfather?" Kobe asked in disbelief. "That's a secret." Ha 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 ha. Luffy laughed, imagining Garp throwing poor Kobe onto some random island filled with giant and powerful creatures while the poor boy screamed and cried. "Anyway, I'm leaving now, Kobe. Good luck, and I hope you become a powerful figure in the future, as strong as an admiral." "I'm counting on it, got it?" Luffy said with a smile as he walked away with Zoro right behind him, walking away from the boy after a brief farewell. Kobe was shocked by Luffy's words, wondering if the guy with the straw hat really believed in him. But he didn't notice any insincerity in his tone when he said those words. Seeing Luffy walking away and realizing that he wouldn't see him for a while, Kobe quickly shouted determined and excitedly at Luffy. This guy with the straw hat had helped him and even encouraged him to pursue his dream. Tears streamed down his face, and he shouted as loudly as he could. "Thank you, Luffy. Wait for me, and one day I'll go to sea to capture you. So you better be ready for it, Monkey D. Luffy," Kobe said with determination and emotion. "I'm counting on it, Kobe," Luffy replied from a distance. "You're very strange, you know that?" Zoro couldn't help but comment beside him. "Ha ha ha ha, I like challenges." The sea would be very boring if there were no potential opponents to fight in the future. Easy things are usually easily forgotten, Luffy said as they walked toward one of the city gates. "I have to agree with your words." Zoro couldn't help but let his fighting spirit speak for him. Walking along the end of the dock, Luffy finally found what he was looking for, a marine ship docked at one of the piers. There were no marines on board since the explosion in the base had made them run to the scene. "Hey, let's steal a marine ship? Won't that give us trouble?" Zoro asked suspiciously, having realized what I was about to do. "Well, I'm going to steal it, but not in the way you're thinking. And yes, it will cause problems, but I'd rather go on a stolen marine ship than some boat we can find at the dock. Besides, there are a few lovely ladies with us who need space," I said as I put my hand on the ship's wood. The Moa Moa no Mi mass applies 0.001 times. The 30-meter ship began to shrink in the next moment. "What is this?" Zoro exclaimed in amazement. As it shrank, the ship didn't leave my touch until it was only 3 centimeters long, shrinking 100 times. Luffy currently has a limit of 30 times his fruit for many applications, and he can apply 3 digits of 0. He hopes to increase the power limit soon, envisioning the possibilities and versatility of the multiplication fruit. Ha ha ha. Don't be too shocked, this is our Corona to get off this island. I promised to return it to the Marines when we have our own boat, I said, showing the tiny ship in the palm of my hand to a bewildered Zoro. Why am I still surprised? You're definitely not human, he retorted, already convinced that Luffy is not normal. Now let's go, we have some people to meet before we set sail, Luffy said, turning and continuing down the path to the east gate and exiting through it. As they walked through the forest, it didn't take long to find the beach where the girls had been after 10 minutes. As they approached, Zoro began to notice the strange group of women. Is that a flying shark? And a mermaid? Zoro couldn't help but be amazed by Shirahoshi, even from a distance and wearing a dress. She was sitting, and her tail was visible on the beach. Come on, there's someone else you'll be even more surprised to meet, Luffy said as they got closer, leaving Zoro even more curious about his captain's words. Luffy-sama! Shirahoshi shouted upon seeing him approach. Hello, I see Lami is awake, Luffy said as he observed the bandaged woman on the beach, conscious but not at all pleased with her current condition. I didn't know you humans got hurt so badly just from falling, how funny. Shirahoshi said as she lay on the beach, swaying her tail and resting her chin on her hands, observing Trafalgar Lami being helped by Beppo, as if she were watching an exotic animal. Who said I fell? Lami exclaimed comically. Ha ha, it looks like you're getting along, Luffy said, watching the scene and laughing. You! Where did you get a woman with horns, a mermaid, and a strange flying shark while I was unconscious? And now you bring a swordsman too? Lami shouted angrily at Luffy as he approached. Sharky Megalo didn't like being called a strange shark. That's a secret, but anyway, about the shark, he uses an air bubble around him. Now, how he breathes outside of the water, I don't know. But more importantly, meet Roronoa Zoro, your new crewmate, I announced, pointing to the green-haired man at my side. Who said I'm your crewmate? Lami yelled angrily. Really, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm sorry. Zoro-sama? Sharky. Hello, I'm Odin? I mean, Yamato. Zoro was speechless in front of this group of strange women and animals before him. First a mermaid and a shark, then a bandaged woman who apparently hated Luffy above all else here, and now a talking bear who expressed his opinion first and then apologized. Not to mention the woman with white and various colored hair, almost 3 meters tall with a pair of horns on her head, almost identifying as a man named Odin. Hey, what's going on here? Are these our crewmates? Where did you get so many bizarre people? Zoro shouted incredulously with a comical expression, wondering if he had made the right decision to join Luffy as a pirate. Ah, cool, right? We're going to conquer the seas together. Wait until you meet the money lover and the long nose, Luffy said enthusiastically, thinking about Nami and Usopp. That wasn't a compliment, Zoro retorted. Speaking of which, did you hear the explosion? Was that you, my Luffy? Yamato asked curiously with her beautiful eyes. Oh, that was me. Zoro was captured by Marines while he was going to be executed, so I decided to blow up the base gate in a clash with the soldiers, Luffy calmly explained. Luffy-sama is so strong. Shirahoshi couldn't help but be impressed. She had been learning many new things since she appeared here, and she didn't know that humans were so strong, as she was taking Luffy as her benchmark for surface human beings. Incredible! I'm sorry, Beppo exclaimed. Tisk, darn it, Lami muttered. Hey, after all these years, this guy still gets into trouble like this? A new voice appeared, and I turned to the woman who now had decent clothes, coming toward us from the forest. So you were here, Kuina? Luffy smiled at the woman. Zoro looked incredulously at the woman when he heard that name. Sad memories couldn't help but flash through his mind with the coincidence of that name, but he never imagined that the coincidence was more than just the identical name. It was the friend who had died more than 11 years ago. When he saw her, he couldn't help but wonder if it was some dream or something. She was there, the woman he once thought was dead until seconds ago. Leaving Zoro to review his friend, he took the gold Zoro had brought and tried a test. There were 40 million in the bags, so he wanted to see if he could exchange it for points. System can add money from the shop without being able to return it to your hands, so 40 million berries will be added to the shop's inventory without being able to withdraw that money to the real world again. The message appeared in front of Luffy. Interesting. But it's better to keep some of this money for now because I want to have some purchasing power in the real world, Luffy muttered to himself as he made most of the gold and banknotes disappear from the bags. In total, 30 million berries were credited to the system, while 10 million remained in front of him. Looking at his companions, Zoro had a look of amazement while talking to Kuina. Yamato, Shirahoshi, Megalo, Beppo, and even Lami looked at me, waiting for something. Well, let's get off this island. I'm glad I took a navy ship, I said, taking a miniature boat from my pocket. He could buy a small ship in the system, but it would be a waste of money right now. Shirahoshi, can I borrow Megalo? He asked her about her shark. I think so. Megalo? She hesitated to part with her friend. Sharky? Megalo seemed cautious. Seeing this, Luffy spoke again. Don't worry, I just need someone to pull the ship, and I need him in his normal form to do it until the next island. He explained his intentions. Sharky. Megalo replied. I guess that's a yes. Anyway, let's go. Luffy opened a smile and took the lead. He walked to the beach, raising his arm back, threw the ship into the sea, catching the curious glances. The Moa Moa no Mi, mass, revert effect in 5 seconds. Tossing the small object into the air, it flew about 50 meters high until it suddenly transformed into a large 30-meter-long ship with the marine flag. Boom asterisk. The sound of the ship hitting the water startled most of his companions when they saw the ship appear out of nowhere. I know you have questions, but let's save that for another time. First, let's board the ship, Luffy announced, and everyone quickly walked to the ship on the water, where a ladder was hanging down. What do you think you're doing? Lami yelled angrily as Luffy went to the beach and picked her up like a princess. What, don't you feel like an emo princess? He asked her with a provocative smile, which would make Luffy take a punch if she weren't bandaged right now. Who are you calling an emo princess? She shouted angrily, but Luffy didn't care. Ignoring her hatred for him, he headed to the marine ship and jumped on board. Everyone boarded the ship shortly thereafter, which didn't take long. As soon as they all got on the ship, Luffy asked Megalo to approach him, where he undid the power of his devil fruit, and he turned back into a 30-meter-long shark. Now, Megalo, take this. As he fell into the water, he grabbed the anchor that Luffy had thrown to him and clamped onto it with his teeth to pull the ship out of the water. Now, go in that direction, he instructed the shark, pointing that way after seeing a marine map. Megalo quickly pulled the ship toward Orange Town. Chapter 12, Convincing Lami. Monkey D, Luffy POV. On a stolen marine ship in the middle of the sea, East Blue. You guys make yourselves comfortable here, I'm going to change. I can't stand these tight clothes anymore, Luffy quickly said as he entered one of the cabins. While he said these words to his new companions, he closed the door and accessed his system shop. In the shop, he had 30 million berries stored to spend on almost anything in this world. Luffy started by picking clothing that matched his style, which wasn't difficult to find since the shop had everything as long as you had the money for it. With the items purchased, he began to put them on and returned to the deck where everyone was already, earning some surprised looks from them for his new appearance. Luffy wore black tactical pants with military-style black boots. He went shirtless, revealing his muscular build and front tattoos. He had a black captain's cloak, identical in style to Gold D. Rogers, draped over one shoulder. On the back of the cloak, he customized it with a pirate skull, a Jolly Roger with the straw hat. He wouldn't change that from the original. His whole style was black, as it was his favorite color. He spent 10 million berries on these items, so they were far from low quality. For clothing, it was a fortune. But it wasn't just the clothes he bought at that moment. He had a pistol that cost 5 million and a saber at his waist that cost another 5 million, bringing his total expenditure to 20 million, with 10 million left in the shop at the moment. These items were not cheap, far from it, but they were nothing compared to the higher value items in the shop. From what he saw, there were incredible items available. An example was Gold D. Rogers' sword, Ace, which could be acquired for 10 billion berries, or 10 billion. Obtaining this item would not be easy, as it was worth more than killing 2 Yonko to receive that amount, a value that only the world nobles could have in their possession. His pistol and saber were not bad, but he didn't think they would hold up well against the power he possessed. So, it was obvious that he planned to replace them with better items in the future when he had a good amount of money available. So, are we heading in the right direction? He asked the group in front of him. Shirahoshi, who was sitting on a marine bench, gazing at the sea and the horizon, looked at Luffy thoughtfully, unsure how to respond. Yamato seemed equally lost. Lami was bandaged in a corner beside Bippo, and she didn't even bother to look at him, still holding a grudge over the beating he had given her in her current condition. Kuina still had the mentality of an 11-year-old girl, so Luffy didn't expect her to respond. But by looking at their expressions, the captain realized that there was a problem in their silence. Why haven't I found anyone intelligent for navigation yet? He thought, somewhat frustrated. I'm not sure, Captain. Zoro was the only one who confirmed anything, but when it came to directions, he was not very reliable, so Luffy ignored him. His only choice was Bippo. Bippo, are we still on the same course? He asked. Yes, Captain. He seemed happy to respond. Don't call him Captain. Lami yelled angrily. I'm sorry. He jumped in fear. Seeing this, Luffy sighed once more. Lami, I know you're angry with me, but I want to talk to you. Come with me to the bow of the ship, we have some things to discuss. He said, and, before she could react, he picked her up like a princess again, despite her struggling. She couldn't do anything about it. I hope you don't come to me with more nonsense. First, you took me away from my journey in my sea, and now I'm bandaged because of you. If I weren't a doctor, I would have to forget my journey for the next few months. She didn't waste any time and growled at him. Why would I join your crew? You may be a monster, but even if you kill me, I don't intend to do that. She immediately roared. As expected of a D, and probably a Conqueror's hockey user. Luffy thought as he looked at the furious woman. Listen, I won't force you to do it. If you don't want to, I'll let you go. But I'm sure I can give you something that almost no one else can in this world. He said sincerely, and she made a face when she heard those words. What can you give me that's so precious that you brought me here somehow and want me to join you? She was finally listening to him for the first time. Simple, your revenge. I can help you destroy Don Quixote da Flamingo. Luffy simply stated, leaving her immediately stunned. For a moment, I thought her backstory might have changed since she's a woman here, but seeing that surprise on her face, she really has the same background as the original Trafalgar D. Law. Luffy analyzed this situation with some satisfaction. Do you know what you're saying? You know that Doflamingo is not only protected by the world government as a former world noble, but also by other even more terrible powers that you can't touch. She didn't fail to exclaim in disbelief at my words and said that expecting some fear on Luffy's face. But the captain had to disappoint her at this moment. Ah, you already know about that, don't you? But I shouldn't be so surprised by someone whose life's only goal is to kill that man. Of course, you have all sorts of information with you. He smiled and continued. If you think I'm afraid of Kaido, one of the Yonko, you're quite mistaken. I'm going to destroy his reign myself when I go to the New World. Do you see that girl with a foolish face over there? I pointed to Yamato some tens of meters away from us, who smiled when she saw Luffy talking about her and waved her hand like a happy fool. Before Lami could speak in surprise, he continued. She is Kaido's daughter. Just as I took you from North Blue, I summoned her right from under her father's nose. Kaido knows that his daughter hates him, but he wouldn't stand idly by knowing that I kidnapped her from Onigashima and brought her to East Blue. He'll come after me as soon as he finds out. Luffy said calmly. Is that true? Lami was astonished by this. Yes. With me, I will guarantee you enough strength to have your revenge with your own hands and not wait for someone else to do it for you. He said because, in the future after the time skip, he was sure that Law wouldn't have the strength to face Doflamingo alone. But Luffy was confident that he could make Lami very strong by that time, and that kind of revenge should be done by her and not by someone else. Do you really mean it? She asked with a lot of disbelief, which Luffy could understand well. Yes, look at me. I have a body as powerful as Yamato and her father. I have 2 disaster-level devil fruits with me, which I consider to be a level above the others. He spoke sincerely. Luffy didn't intend to hide these things from his potential crew members. He didn't like building close relationships with lies. He would be open as soon as possible. Besides, who could believe those words? The Moa Moa no Mi was hidden behind the power of his Zoan, as it wasn't something tangible. At most, people could suspect when he changed the mass of objects and people, but he would always use his Manticore Zoan to hide the multiplication fruit for now. When the real threat was exposed, he would almost have no one to fear in the sea. 2 disaster-level devil fruits? She exclaimed so loudly that even the others heard it. You know that with this and a reliable crew, it's only a matter of time until the sea and the world are under my rule. Luffy said arrogantly, as that was what he believed. Lami fell silent, contemplating my words. All right. I'll join you because, above all, you're AD. But I hope you keep your word. The moment I see that you won't fulfill your promise, I will leave the group or even kill you for deceiving me. She threatened, but Luffy gave her a big smile. Ha 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 ha. Then I say, welcome to the group, emo girl. Luffy was laughing with joy at this moment. Who are you calling an emo girl? She shouted with a comical face. Hee, anyway, let's celebrate with the others. He said as he received a message from the system. Crew, Trafalgar D. Lami has joined as a crew member. Crew, Bepo has joined as a crew member. This is great, I said to myself. Chapter 13, The Beginning of the Crew. Monkey D. Luffy POV. On a stolen marine ship in the middle of the sea, East Blue. It didn't take them long to ransack the marine ship's storage and kitchen to prepare their first of many banquets to come. Let's celebrate, Luffy announced with a smile as he gathered with everyone else. Celebrate. Yamato immediately agreed, expressing her happiness. TSK, the marine stash is pretty weak. Zoro grumbled as he drank a bottle he had taken from the ship's storage. You've become an alcoholic after 11 years? Kuina teased beside him, expressing some surprise at how the young boy had turned into a young man who loved sake. Is that good? Shirahoshi asked curiously about the drink. That's not for you. You're only 18. Here, take this, orange juice for you, princess. Luffy immediately intervened and handed her something healthy. Meanwhile, he picked up a bottle next to Zoro, who looked at him with some surprise. But aren't you younger than her? Zoro asked, surprised because Luffy had mentioned he was only 17, just like the original. Ha ha ha. That's true, but I'm the captain. I said, drinking a new type of alcohol that I had never tasted in my life, but I didn't even grimace at the sake. What kind of logic is that? Lami asked beside him, in a bad mood. Should I call you captain now, captain? Bepo was still lost since his captain had said they would be part of Luffy's crew. I believe you can call him captain now. Lami muttered, and she was quite proud, which didn't surprise Luffy much. Anyway, what's the plan now, Captain? Zoro asked curiously, drawing everyone's attention to him because Luffy had so far only recruited them and hadn't talked much about his future plans, other than wanting to head towards Orangetown with Megalo pulling the ship at high speed at the moment. Well, first, before I want to go to the Grand Line, there are some things to do in this sea, and one of them is to recruit some members with high potential. As powerful as we are here, in the Grand Line, things change. He said, looking at everyone and continued. At the moment, the most powerful member of the group is Yamato, the vice captain of the crew. But even though she is powerful, we can't fight against the world with our current strength, so my top priority is to get stronger and recruit new crew members, which includes stealing a lot of money as we sail this sea. I need to gather as much money as I can to improve the crew, and the best way to do that is by taking everything we can along the way. Most of you have no idea where we're going and what the true powers of this world are, but there are people in the Grand Line who can wipe out an entire island. For example, Zoro and Kuina, your dream is to become the world's greatest swordsman, right? Yes. For sure. I'm not saying this to discourage you, but to increase your determination. Mihawk, currently the world's greatest swordsman, could cut the island of Shell City in half. Look at that possibility. You have a long way to go, and you'll never get stronger if you stay here in the East Blue or avoid great dangers that may even threaten your lives. What? Cut that island? That's impossible. Both expressed disbelief, and I sighed. As I said, that's his level and the level of several monsters in the second half of the Grand Line. I want you to bear in mind that you'll have to become powerful at that level if you want to survive and achieve that dream. Scary. Scary. Beepo shouted. Beepo, don't worry, and I have faith that everyone will become powerful here. Luffy wanted to encourage everyone with a confident smile. Do you think I can become strong enough to protect the Fishman Island and fulfill my mother's dream? Suddenly, Shirahoshi asked timidly, believing in Luffy's smile. I know you can, and I'll protect you until that time, Princess, because I have faith in you. That's why I summoned you, as well as everyone here. I told her and the rest of them. Yeah, thank you, Luffy-sama, she said, a little teary-eyed and touched. I think I can become strong enough to protect the island of the Tritons and fulfill my mother's dream? She asked with a little smile. I have no doubts about that, I answered, which made her very happy. Zoro is right, I'm going to become strong enough not to lose to Zoro or anyone else. Kuina said as well. Then I'll get stronger to beat that old man with my own hands. Yamato said confidently, referring to her father. I'm going to get my revenge. So, I'll get stronger too. Lami said, still bandaged, but she was now swept up by the group's atmosphere. I want to get strong too. I'm sorry. Beepo didn't get out of character, he shouted, and everyone paid attention to him just for him to become embarrassed and apologize, but Luffy could see his determination. Now let's continue our feast because today marks the beginning of the infamous pirate group's journey, the Straw Hat Pirates. Luffy announced, laughing and happily creating a bond with several of their dreams and goals here. For the rest of the day, the group celebrated, drinking and eating until night fell. It didn't take long for the night to grow in the sky and dawn. On the deck, there was a Zoro and Beepo sleeping on the floor. The girls were in the cabins. Megalo had shrunk again to rest and was sleeping with Shirahoshi in a room. Meanwhile, Luffy was the only one awake this night, standing outside alone. He was experiencing his first night in this world with a great sense of satisfaction for everything he had achieved on this day, looking up at the stars. He couldn't help but savor this moment while he took a bottle of rum and gazed at the stars. I still can't believe I'm in this world. What's more, I've become the protagonist. Naturally, the future won't end well without the original Luffy, so I'll live my own adventure. I just don't know if the result will be good or bad for this world, but I'll help all my allies achieve their goals and live my own way without regrets. In any case, I have powerful people with me now. I've always wondered what it would be like to have Yamato, Law, or Shirahoshi at the beginning of the journey, and now I can experience all that. Luffy was talking to himself with a great feeling of satisfaction swelling within him at this moment. While he was lost in his thoughts and muttering to himself, he heard footsteps. Even without his observation haki, his enhanced senses as a mythical Zoan user gave him much sharper hearing and smell, and he knew whose footsteps they were and even recognized their scent. "You seem unable to sleep," Luffy commented to no one in particular as he continued to gaze at the stars. "I could say the same for you," the female voice replied and continued to speak. "But I really can't sleep. It's hard to sleep when you knew you were dead until recently. Besides, Yamato snores too much." Ha ha ha. She laughed at her own joke. "Zoro is the same, look at him over there." Luffy pointed to his new friend, who was snoring on the floor, still holding a bottle of sake. "That's true. Ha ha ha." She laughed but soon turned melancholic. "But you know? I'm glad to see someone from my past, even with my memories still fresh from that boy who was smaller than me," she said nostalgically. He, when I brought him to you, I thought Zoro would hand over your old sword, but it seems he still has it. Is there something special about it?" Luffy asked, curious. "Well, he tried really hard, but I refused. Since my father gave it to him, I have no right to take it back," she explained. "Anyway, we'll get you an even better one later." Luffy looked at her with a smile for the first time. "Are you serious? Do you really want me on your crew? Do you believe I can pursue my dream?" She stared at Luffy, who was illuminated by the moonlight. "I have no doubt about that, Kuina. But I can believe that Zoro can become the greatest as well. Now, this battle is between you two." Ha ha ha. He said sincerely, believing that both she and Zoro could become the character known as the world's greatest swordsman. "Well, I certainly won't lose to that idiot in the end," she said with determination. "Then I believe in you," he simply said those words. "Oh, looking at it that way, I think you're hitting on me," she joked, but she could see her face turn a bit red. "Ah, about that, you might have the body of a 22-year-old woman, but you're still a stinky brat. Why would I be interested in a child?" Ha 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 ha. Luffy laughed as he spoke to her while drinking from a bottle he held in his hand. "Who are you calling a child?" she shouted in frustration and walked away angrily, her mood now ruined. "Ha, in about 7 years, maybe I can be interested in you," he couldn't help but mutter. Hearing that, she stopped for a moment, but soon continued walking away, still in a bad mood. "Luffy, you idiot," she muttered and went on. And Luffy returned to drinking under the stars and thinking about his future plans. Chapter 14 Training. Monkey D. Luffy POV. On board a stolen marine ship in the vast expanse of the East Blue. The following day, Luffy woke up peacefully and decided to attend to some unfinished business while still in bed. There was one thing he hadn't explored the previous day, something he hadn't found a moment for amidst all the excitement of recruiting his first crew member. This was the crew system, an option that had become available after acquiring his first Nakama. Opening the system, he navigated to the crew option, and a screen appeared. Crew. Monkey D. Luffy, Captain. Devil Fruits, Moa Moa Nomi D/icon icon Nomi, Model, Chaosifrit D. Vitality, S. Strength, B. Defense, A. Speed, C. Spirit, B. Haushiko Haki, Locked. Voice of all things, Locked. As a member of your crew, all your talents are increased by 100%. Yamato, Vice Captain. Devil Fruits, Inu Inu no Mi, Model, Okuchi no Makami, B. Vitality, S. Strength, A. Defense, S. Speed, B. Spirit, A. Swordsmanship, B. Kenbunshiko Haki, D. Gyusashoko Haki, C. Haushiko Haki, D. As a member of your crew, all your talents are increased by 100%. Shirahoshi, no specific role. Devil Fruits, none. Vitality, S. Strength, D. Defense, D. Speed, E. Spirit, S. Poseidon, Locked. Haushiko Haki, locked. As a member of your crew, all your talents are increased by 100%. Megalo, mascot. Devil fruits, none. Vitality, C. Strength, C. Defense, D. Speed, D. Spirit, D. As a member of your crew, all your talents are increased by 100%. Zoro, swordsman. Devil fruits, none. Vitality, D. Strength, C. Defense, D. Speed, C. Spirit, C. Swordsmanship, Santorio, C. Haushiko Haki, locked. As a member of your crew, all your talents are increased by 100%. Trafalgar D. Lamy, doctor. Devil fruits, Oppo Nomi, C. Vitality, C. Strength, C. Defense, C. Speed, B. Spirit, C. Swordsmanship, D. Haushiko Haki, locked. As a member of your crew, all your talents are increased by 100%. Beepo, assistant. Devil fruits, none. Vitality, D. Strength, D. Defense, E. Speed, E. Spirit, C. As a member of your crew, all your talents are increased by 100%. System rules. The classification level of the system works from E to EX, where EX represents the ultimate limit, with the progression from lowest to highest. E D C B A S S S S S S X. What? Luffy exclaimed in surprise at the incredible bonuses each crew member received from the system. It was a significant advantage that made his crew much more powerful. Ha 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 ha. I mean, it might be overpowered, but it's great because my crew can be even more powerful than I planned. Even though I can't directly control their development, I can still monitor all of them. Luffy mused with great satisfaction. Furthermore, he could now see hidden abilities within each of his crew members. 4 of them had the Haushiko Haki, although most of them couldn't access it yet. 5 crew members possessed the power of the Conqueror's Haki, including Luffy. It was an extraordinary start for their journey. Did you know that Roger had 3 people with this Haki? Luffy thought to himself. And as for rocks, they had 5, from what I know Zurich, Newgate, Shiki, Kaido, and Big Mom. But look at my crew, we have 5 members with Haushiko Haki and an ancient weapon at the beginning of our journey. Luffy couldn't help but laugh internally at the immense potential. Shaking off his thoughts, Luffy rose from his bed and made his way to the ship's kitchen, where his comrades were enjoying their first meals of the day. Good morning. Luffy greeted them, and he received greetings in return. Alright, Megalo, can you get back to pulling the ship today? We're nearing Orange Town, Luffy asked the shark, who responded enthusiastically with Sharky Sharky Sharky. After they finished eating, Luffy went outside with Megalo and returned him to his full-sized form. The shark dove into the water and began pulling the anchor once again. Although Luffy could use his devil fruit powers to multiply the ship's speed, he decided to focus on other matters for now. Now, we have some time before we reach the next island, so I'm going to start training you all here. Training? How can you do that? Zoro inquired, curious about Luffy's plan. It's simple. I'll use my devil fruit powers to enhance your abilities, Luffy replied, a confident grin on his face. What kind of powers are those, Luffy-sama? Shirahoshi asked hesitantly. I have the Moa Moa no Mi, and I can multiply many things with it, Luffy explained, earning surprised looks from his crew members. However, before anyone could ask more questions, he continued. For instance, Lamy, I noticed that your recovery magically increased from yesterday to today. Did you do something? He asked, looking at the doctor, who had fully recovered overnight and was back to 100%, much to his confusion. Yes, did you do something? Lamy inquired, equally surprised. I did. I increased your recovery rate by 30 times. That's my limit for now, but it's quite overpowered. Ha ha ha, Luffy chuckled. That's unbelievably incredible, you know? Kuina exclaimed, astonished. I know, but even though it's overpowered, there are still some limits. I can't increase a person's size by 30 times, only up to 10%. The same applies to enhancing your learning abilities. I can boost your training speed by a maximum of 3 times. But that's what I want, and it will help a lot when I apply it to you, Luffy explained. Hold on. Are you saying you can increase our learning by 3 times? So, a day of training with you is equivalent to 3 days? Yamato asked in disbelief. That's correct, Luffy confirmed, but he knew the actual number was closer to 6 days, as the system provided a full bonus to their talents. However, he chose to withhold this information for now, not quite sure how to explain it to them. It's truly amazing. But if the world finds out? Lami murmured. I know, Lami, but I trust you all. That's why I'm sharing this with you. As I said, I'm going to make all of you even stronger. Didn't I promise that yesterday when we officially formed this pirate crew? Luffy said confidently. Yes, thank you, Luffy-sama. Shirahoshi quickly jumped happily onto the captain to hug him, and Luffy was quick to catch the princess so she wouldn't fall to the ground. Incredible. I heard Beepo muttering beside. Anyway, I'm going to train you physically. Come with me to a more open space. Luffy led them to the middle of the deck. It was an open part of the ship with plenty of space for everyone. I'll start. Shirahoshi, step back a bit. I'll begin with them first to test their levels, I said, and the princess swam in the air with her bubble of air to distance herself from them. Moa Moa no Mi, gravity, apply 5 times. Pressure surged in the middle of the group, causing everyone to fall to the ground, except Yamato, who barely felt the pressure and looked at everyone with amusement. What is this? Zoro asked alarmed, pinned to the ground, but gradually trying to push against the pressure with his face against the ship's wood. I'm applying 5 times the gravity, it's only 5 times your weight. Some of you are barely suffering, while others can't even resist, Luffy explained. Beepo and Kuina, with her weak body, couldn't even move their mouths to complain. Seeing that Zoro, Lami, Kuina, and Beepo couldn't handle just 5 times their weight, Luffy opened a store and bought some weights, spending some berries. Take these. He tossed 4 sets to attach to their arms, legs, and a weighted shirt that he bought from the store. I've added 100 kilograms to each with my multiplication. You'll follow a training regimen that I'll provide with physical exercises. As you get accustomed to the weights, I'll double them using the power of my devil fruit. You'll also be under the influence of 3 times the learning speed I've already applied to you, so make the most of it, I said and looked at Shirahoshi. Take these weights, Shirahoshi. You'll start with 20 kilograms, and later, I'll increase them, understood? I told her. Yes, Luffy-sama. Now, he turned to Yamato. Yamato, you'll train with me under the pressure of gravity and weights, he said to her. Yes, you can count on me. She replied with a confident smile. Yamato and I have the most powerful bodies here due to our lineage, so I'll train with her under the highest pressure I can withstand, Luffy quickly reasoned. They quickly began their set and exercise routine. Luffy couldn't help but notice the beautiful daughter of Kaido in front of him as they trained. She's stronger than I am, so I strengthened her with some multiplied weights while I do my push-ups in 10 times gravity, which is my current limit, Luffy thought as he continued the exercises. After a whole morning of training, they finally had a break to rest, and Luffy gave Megalo a break to join them for lunch. Everyone was quite tired. Wow, that was worse than any training I've ever had, but I'm satisfied. I can already feel some results. Zoro, who was eating while lying down due to the paralysis from training, commented with a slight smile. It's really invigorating. Yamato said, as she had been training with both the added pressure and the weights Luffy gave her, feeling better than any other training she had experienced in Wano. I'm so tired. Shirahoshi didn't stop complaining, along with a broken Beepo beside her. Lami and Kuina remained silent, but they were equally tired. Despite everyone being satisfied with the results they could already feel after just a few hours of training, Luffy let them rest because, as their first training, it's good to let their bodies start getting used to it. They still had plenty of time to train before entering the Grand Line. Seeing this, Luffy grabbed a beach chair from the sailors and lay down to rest. His body was equally tired, and he ended up taking a nap at that moment. He woke up when someone shouted his name in distress. "Luffy-sama!" Shirahoshi cried out to him. Luffy opened his eyes and saw the mermaid who was asking for help. On her end, there were two men holding swords and threatening her on the ship. He. I never thought I'd see a mermaid here in the East Blue. I didn't even know they existed. I thought it was a legend from the Grand Line. Captain Buggy will surely compensate us for this. Seeing this, Luffy became furious and quickly used his increased speed, punching the men with an amethyst flame without giving them time to react. The two men, who didn't even see Luffy approaching like a flash, were hit and covered the area where they were with their flames. They didn't even have time to react or see what had hit them. They simply disintegrated instantly with the scorching and dangerous heat of that mysterious fire. Boom asterisk. The explosion of flames was so loud that it made the ship shake a bit. What is this? Zoro jumped off the mast quickly. He was sleeping but woke up due to Shirahoshi's crying, though he reacted much more slowly than Luffy. I ignored Zoro and the other crew members on their way and saw Shirahoshi on the deck with a scared and crying face. Luffy sighed as he walked over to her. "Hey, are you okay?" he asked as he knelt beside her, gently touching her head. I don't know. They said they were going to sell me." "Wah!" She began to cry and jumped on Luffy to hug and cry on him. At this point, everyone on the ship had gathered around due to the commotion. "I know, but don't worry, they won't harm you anymore. I promised you that you'd be safe with me, understood?" Luffy tried to calm the young mermaid. "Yes, thank you, Luffy-sama. I was so scared," she murmured, still crying. "Anyway, where did these guys come from?" Lami asked loudly as she saw the area I had destroyed, while noticing only some scraps of their clothes that hadn't disintegrated with the captain's punch. This made her think about the fate of their future enemies and caused her to break into a sweat, imagining that he wouldn't show mercy if someone hurt his crew. Doesn't matter who they are or if they've seen a mermaid. They have no idea even on a ship with a marine flag? Kuina complained. "What?" he shouted, and Luffy ignored him to look at the girl with a fish tail and pink hair clinging to him like a panda to a tree. "Shirahoshi, how did these men get in here?" he finally asked the mermaid seriously, who was clinging to his neck and crying. I was looking at the view to admire the sun and the horizon, then I saw a boat next to the ship asking for help. I wanted to help those humans, and when they got on our ship, they threatened me with their swords, so I screamed for Luffy-sama, who helped me right away." She sobbed all of this. Sigh asterisk. After sighing, Luffy turned to the group that was observing them. "Yamato, I know you have observation haki. You should have known about them before anyone else. I don't want to see any intruders entering this ship so easily, understand?" I said seriously to Yamato. "Observation haki?" Kuina asked curiously, but Luffy ignored her and focused on Yamato's response. "Yes, you're right. It won't happen again," she said seriously. Yamato had indeed sensed their presence when Shirahoshi helped them onto the ship. However, since she saw that the mermaid was helping them, she didn't think it would be a problem. She took that into account only because she couldn't sense the emotions of others with her current level of haki. "Great, please, I'm counting on you and Megalo," I told the shark, which was still hugging Shirahoshi. "You will always stay with Shirahoshi, don't lose sight of her again, understand?" I spoke to the shark. "Sharky sharky sharky," it said, determined and a bit remorseful for not being with its friend right now, as it was sleeping. "Shirahoshi, I know you have a good heart, and I admire that in you. But you shouldn't trust just anyone, you know how cruel everyone can be, even humans and fishmen, right?" he said seriously to her. "Yes, Luffy-sama. I'm sorry, I'll call you or someone else the next time I see something unusual," she said, still crying. "Now, get your things ready. We're very close to Orange Town now, and it won't be a peaceful visit. We'll face our first enemy pirate crew as the Straw Hat Crew," he said determined. "Yes, Luffy-sama. Shirahoshi replied, feeling a bit better. Sharky. Megalo said. Yes, Captain. Zoro responded. Yes, my Luffy. Yamato quickly put her club on her shoulder. Yes, Lami said, holding her sword. Yes. I'm sorry, Bippo entered a depressed state. Kuina didn't say anything because she wasn't an official member of the group. She really wanted to be part of this, but she still had to think about it before talking to her father. Luffy looked at everyone, satisfied, as he pushed Shirahoshi away from him to look at the small shadow of the island on the horizon, growing larger as they approached. Chapter 15, Greeting Buggy. Third-person POV. Orange Town, East Blue. What? Are you saying this woman took our Grand Line map? Buggy shouted at his man, who appeared holding a woman beside him after catching her in the town. Yes, Captain. It was her. The man quickly affirmed with some anger in his voice because he had a hard time catching this thief. I see. So, young lady, did you really think you could steal from Buggy's pirates and get away with it? Buggy himself asked directly to the orange-haired girl, who was cornered and captured at this point. I apologize? She stammered, making any excuse. Huh? Apologies? Do you really think we'll accept that? The red-nosed man said angrily and mockingly. But I'm just a poor girl, the Greg man with such a powerful and brave nose, he wouldn't let this girl go, would he? She tried to seduce Buggy with words and expressions on her face. Thank you for knowing and recognizing my greatness while praising my big nose, maybe I can. Captain Buggy? Kabeji alerted by his side, and Buggy quickly realized he was falling for the siren song here. Exclamation point. Do you think you can deceive me by praising me? Throw her in the cell, we're going to blow her up. Buggy said indignantly, as he was reacting to her earlier flattery easily. Before she could protest, her arms were grabbed, and she was locked in a cage. Ha, men. Today, I'll show you what happens to those who try to steal from us. Buggy shouted to his crew. Ee-hee-ah. A chorus was heard from his men after this. Prepare one of the buggy balls. Buggy shouted, and a little clown-costumed man rushed to the depot and brought a dark ball with the clown symbol that was the size of a cannonball. He brought it with difficulty since it was equally heavy as a cannonball but much more powerful. What is this? The girl, named Nami, was scared when she saw this. She knew she could die there. You're deaf. Ha 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 ha. Buggy laughed, seeing her frightened face. But I'm just a girl. She tried to defend herself, but Buggy didn't even care about her pleas as he aimed his cannon right at her in front of the city. The impact would not only kill her but also take the entire city behind her with the explosion. Buggy wanted to see destruction at that moment as his best show. Look, men, get ready to watch the great show. Buggy shouted while preparing to light the cannon's fuse. Meanwhile, Nami looked at this with no expression. She realized she was going to die there, unable to do anything. Her death would be the pirates' entertainment, and she closed her eyes as her final act to avoid seeing her own death, thinking that everything she had fought for was in vain. Her life would end there without her being able to save her village and the people living there. But at the last moment, something unexpected happened. Captain! A man came running when Buggy was about to blow up the thief and the city. What is it? I hope it's important enough to stop my show. Buggy was so angry with this crew member who interrupted him that he wanted to put him in the cage with the girl if it wasn't something important. Marines! A marine ship is coming here at a speed like I've never seen before. He shouted. What? How did the Marines get here so quickly without anyone noticing? We captured this town today. Buggy shouted in surprise. Men, get ready to. Ha! Boom asterisk. Boom asterisk. Boom asterisk. Boom asterisk. Cannonball explosions began to appear on the sides of the camp, destroying everything and killing some of Buggy's men in the process. Ah! Captain, do something! They shouted as they were hit. Captain! Stop it, Cap! Ha! Boom! Buggy watched his men being massacred by the artillery attacking the camp and became furious. He quickly looked towards the sea at this moment. There was a marine ship. By the noise, there were 2 cannons firing balls at the camp, but at the same time, 4 shots were fired. Buggy didn't know why this was happening, but it didn't matter, he had to do something. He couldn't bear to see his men being slaughtered like this right in front of his eyes. Fire the buggy ball at them, now! Buggy quickly told his men, who, in the midst of the chaos, began turning the cannon towards the ship in the sea. Shoot, shoot, shoot! Buggy was angry and crazy as he yelled. Soon the fuse was lit and began to burn. Boom asterisk. The explosion of the buggy ball was heard as soon as the fuse reached its end. The ball flew towards the ship, and Buggy hoped it would be annihilated with all those Marines who attacked him without warning, just killing his men so cruelly in his view. Meanwhile, a moment ago, on that same Marine ship. Can you see them? Kuina asked by the side as she saw the ship approaching the island. I can't see the details, but I can see the pirate group with Buggy's flag. Luffy said a few kilometers away from where Buggy and his crew were. Okay, prepare the cannons, bring all the balls and some of the cannons here. Luffy told Yamato to take a cannon while he helped her with another one. Zoro, Bippo, Lamy, and Kuina would bring the cannonballs and put them up. Once we set up a good spot in the center of the ship to shoot against Buggy's group, we waited for the ship to get closer. It was already under the effect of 30 times speed with the captain's fruit to take them by surprise without them noticing. With the ship's speed increased, the Mugiwaras were approaching surprisingly quickly without drawing attention to themselves at this point. The whole crew began to hear the screams of those pirates from afar, as if those men were a bunch of animals. They seemed to be celebrating. Lamy said. It looks like they've caught someone and planned to kill that person, who is in a cage. With enhanced ears from another mythical Zoan and her observation haki, it wasn't difficult for Yamato to identify the situation. So they've already got her? Luffy said, looking at a little orange dot, where Nami's hair should be. Okay, does anyone here know how to use these cannons? Luffy finally asked, turning to his crew, but the answer he received was silence. While Shirahoshi, Megalo looked at the pieces of metal with curiosity, Kuina and Lamy whistled to avoid the question. Bippo seemed hesitant to answer, while Zoro was looking bored at me. Yamato had a big smile on her face and was the first to answer. No. Why the hell do you look happy to answer that? Luffy yelled at her. Tisk, anyway, I'll teach you. I've checked the gunpowder, everything is okay. I want Bippo and Shirahoshi to aim the cannons and pull the cord to fire. Kuina and Lamy will reload the cannons, and, as I said, for you two, it's just pulling the cord and waiting to reload, got it? Luffy asked. What do we, you, and Yamato do in the meantime? Zoro asked. Simple, me and Yamato don't need a cannon, we're going to throw the balls with our hands. You stay on defense in case they retaliate, you cut all the cannonballs coming our way. Wait a minute. Kuina shouted in disbelief. You're going to shoot with your hands? She asked, thinking she had heard wrong, while everyone was stunned by this as well. Yes, I saw Gramps do it once, so I learned from him. Luffy said simply. What kind of monster grandfather teaches his grandson to shoot cannonballs with his hands? The chorus was heard while only Yamato didn't seem to care. After all, her father was Kaido. That doesn't matter now, let's all get to work. Luffy shouted, and everyone started taking their assigned positions. Do you see the middle of the square? Don't shoot there, got it? There's someone important locked in that cage. I said. Who, Luffy-sama? Shirahoshi asked curiously. A new crewmate, of course. Luffy smiled as he looked at the square. Moa Moa no Mi, strength, apply 30 times. After feeling the effect, I picked up a cannonball with one hand without any problem, and Luffy threw it into the air to feel its weight in this state. It's like I'm dealing with a golf ball, how fun! Luffy was genuinely excited. Yamato also picked up a black cannonball from the pile with the same ease as Luffy. Is it just throwing it? Yamato asked with a smile. Yes, just aim where I said, don't shoot in the middle of the square. Luffy warned as he waited for his other crewmates to get ready to attack. "Are we ready?" Luffy shouted with an excited smile. I had never participated in a naval battle in my life, so it was a new experience. "Yes, my Luffy." Yamato smiled. "Of course, Captain." Beppo said obediently. "Yes, Luffy-sama," Shirahoshi said. After making sure everyone was loaded and their sights locked, Luffy raised his hand with the cannonball behind it and prepared. After waiting for a few seconds, he prepared to throw it forward and shouted, "Fire! Launch asterisk! Launch asterisk! Bang asterisk! Bang asterisk!" The first sounds were the balls launched by Luffy and Yamato, followed closely by the cannons exploding in gunpowder as the balls were fired at high speed in that direction. Boom asterisk! Boom asterisk! Boom asterisk! Boom asterisk! The explosions of impacts in the middle of the pirates were heard by everyone on the ship. "This is so cool." To Luffy's surprise, he looked at Shirahoshi, who had her ears covered with the noise from the cannons. She seemed to be enjoying the explosions they had helped create. It made him wonder if she even knew that no one would be fine if they were hit by these explosions, but Luffy soon shrugged it off. "Lami, Kuena. Prepare the cannons again." "Yes. Yes. Room." Lami struck her pose, and her power appeared, making the ball and the pile flow towards Beppo's cannon. "Oh. If you can do that, then restock Shirahoshi's cannon as well." Luffy yelled at her and continued. "Why didn't you tell me that earlier?" Luffy couldn't help but ask with a vein on his forehead since she hadn't said anything about it before. "Because you didn't ask," she said teasingly to Luffy. This emo girl knows how to get on my nerves. Luffy couldn't help but curse her. "Anyway, Kuena, stay with Zoro if he needs help." The captain instructed the woman who was standing in front of the pile of cannonballs as the black balls flew to restock and reload the cannons, thanks to Lami's power. Once all the cannons were loaded with ammunition, Luffy and Yamato prepared their cannonballs in hand. "Fire! Launch asterisk! Launch asterisk! Bang asterisk! Bang asterisk! Boom asterisk! Boom asterisk! Boom asterisk! Boom asterisk! Fire! Launch asterisk! Launch asterisk! Bang asterisk! Bang asterisk! Boom asterisk! Boom asterisk! Boom asterisk! Boom asterisk! Fire! Launch asterisk! Launch asterisk! Bang asterisk! Bang asterisk! Boom asterisk! Boom asterisk! Boom asterisk! Boom asterisk! The attack was devastating the entire buggy pirates camp, and Luffy didn't envy anyone who was there at this moment. "This is so much fun!" Shirahoshi shouted happily. "It's really fun!" Beppo joined in with the mermaid. "This is so boring." Zoro muttered pompously, as he wasn't doing anything so far, just watching. "Don't be like that, training is more worthwhile than fighting these guys, trust me," Luffy said, trying to reassure the green-haired swordsman. "Seems like they're aiming that funny-looking cannon at us." Yamato spoke next to me, and Luffy turned to look towards the island. There, the famous buggy ball was pointed at them. "That cannon may look silly, but it has a lot of attack power, and don't worry, I'll take care of it," Luffy affirmed confidently. "Huh? And me? Didn't I take care of the ship's defense?" "Sharky, sharky, sharky." Zoro and a mini Megalo immediately expressed dissatisfaction, Zoro because I had told him to stay in place and take care of it, while Megalo felt somewhat useless since he had no task there. "Look closely at what will happen and tell me later how you'll take care of it," I said to Zoro as I prepared for the buggy ball aimed at us. Ba'anangag, asterisk. I heard the explosion as the cannonball was coming at high speed towards the ship. Luffy looked at it and opened one hand. A purple flame began to spin around his palm as it was being charged with more power with each passing moment. When he saw that there was enough power in his hand, he pointed it in that direction, and the flame shot out as if it were a cannonball from his hand. Boom asterisk. When it left my hand, a small explosion was heard. The cannonball and the flame collided at high speed, 1 kilometer between the ship and the island. The cannonball was fired much earlier, but my flame was much faster. When the two collided, nullifying their progress on the way, a flash appeared, followed by a force impact, and an explosion of water, fire, and steam was seen in front of the ship and the island. Boom asterisk. The light was the first thing that blinded the spectators, followed by the deafening noise. As a shockwave manifested in a 360-degree direction, to all sides, they felt the explosion. My God! What was that? We could be dead now. I'm sorry. Hey, this is not a joke. How the hell do these pirates have such a weapon? So scary. Sharky. Does anyone realize that the captain had the same explosive power as that bomb, just by throwing a flame through his hand? That was so fun. Luffy's crewmates each had a different opinion, while trying to balance themselves on the ship, which was shaking a lot and unstable after receiving an impact of this magnitude. Chapter 16, Orangetown 01. Third-person POV. Orangetown, East Blue. As soon as the explosion subsided and the entire area fell into silence, all those who had witnessed this spectacle were left wondering what had just happened. Whistle asterisk. In the midst of the silence that enveloped the atmosphere, Luffy whistled, breaking the quiet, and exclaimed, "That was amazing, the art is an explosion." Ha ha ha. Luffy laughed heartily, snapping the rest of his crew out of their dazed state, and they stared at him as if he were a madman. How can you find this incredible? Kuwait and Lamy shouted comically. Luffy paid no attention to them and looked at the island, still some distance away. He turned to his crew with a smile. I think our friends are waiting for us, so let's keep attacking them, Luffy said as the ship regained speed after the explosion had temporarily hindered its progress. Are the cannons ready? Keep firing, Kuina, you're in charge of them. I'll head over there to attack the center of Buggy's camp with Yamato, Luffy said as wings sprouted from his back and his hair grew. Eh? Yamato exclaimed in surprise when she was suddenly grabbed by Luffy and swiftly pulled into the air. Luffy soared into the sky with Yamato in tow, covering 2 kilometers in no time and landing in the square where the bandits' camp was located. Chaos reigned at the fringes of the location, but the center remained relatively unaffected by the marine ship's explosions. Luffy observed that they were preparing another buggy ball to shoot at the ship quickly, and he wasn't going to allow that to happen again. Hovering about 500 meters above the ground, with his arm wrapped around Yamato's waist, they rapidly descended at high speed. How is the ship intact after that attack? Moji asked in disbelief. They had been celebrating when they witnessed the explosion, thinking it had hit the ship. However, as the steam and smoke cleared, they were dumbfounded to see the ship approaching, seemingly unaffected by the explosion. Is it just me, or was the buggy ball explosion much more powerful than usual? I believe they intercepted the bomb before it hit the ship since the explosion seemed quite close, Kabeji commented next to Buggy. So prepare another buggy ball. Buggy shouted, and everyone readied themselves to launch another attack on the marine ship. Meanwhile, unnoticed by them, Luffy and Yamato had landed with a powerful thud. Boom! The sudden noise caught the attention of the pirates and the orange-haired girl, who watched in surprise as these figures appeared after the dust from the earlier attack began to settle. Who are you, you scoundrels? Buggy was the first to speak, clearly enraged, as he witnessed these two individuals. He shouted hysterically, seeing a tall, tattooed man wearing black pirate clothes with a straw hat on his back, along with a taller woman with horns holding a massive spiked kanabo. They seemed to have appeared magically in the midst of the ongoing battle against the Navy, which was drawing closer. Since you asked, I'll answer. My name is Monkey D. Luffy. The man who will dominate all the seas of this world. Luffy announced with a confident smile. Ha? Do you think you're the Pirate King? You're insane. Kill them. Buggy immediately ordered, unwilling to hear any more of this nonsense. Boom asterisk. Boom asterisk. As Buggy shouted, the approaching marine ship continued firing cannonballs at the pirates under Kuina's direct orders on the ship's deck. 10 men ran towards Luffy and Yamato, brandishing swords with malicious intent. Yamato took a step forward and effortlessly used her kanabo to send anyone who came close flying like rockets. The witnesses were horrified to see this scene. "Captain Buggy, they're monsters." Several of the men commented, their faces displaying shock. "What? Kill them using the buggy ball," Buggy ordered, seeing the broken and unconscious bodies. "I won't allow that," Luffy stated as he used his speed to pass through the pirates and appeared next to the cannon. The pirates were preparing to fire at point-blank range. "What?" A chorus of voices was heard as Luffy stood next to the cannon and used his muscles to lift the entire metal cannon effortlessly from the ground. Sorry, but I'll take this," Luffy said as he casually grabbed the cannon and raised it high, tossing it more than 500 meters into the sea like it was a toy. "What?" A chorus was heard as the pirates witnessed Luffy's superhuman strength when he threw their primary weapon into the air. "It can't be possible?" The orange-haired girl was left in shock, choking on her words after witnessing Luffy's incredible display of strength. She had never known or seen that humans could be so strong. Both Buggy, Kabeji, Moji, the giant lion, Richie, and the rest of the pirates were left astounded by the display of inhuman power. "That must be the power of some devil fruit," Buggy exclaimed. Seeing the horrified silence that had taken over, Luffy turned to Buggy and said, "Buggy, I'll give you a choice. I'll either let you surrender peacefully or beat you up before taking your bounty. What do you say?" Luffy inquired, aiming to further provoke the comical clown. "What did you say, you scoundrel? Are you bounty hunter Zoro?" Buggy shouted angrily at Luffy's audacity but soon asked, curious if Zoro had arrived in the East Blue. "No, I'm a pirate, and I'm after money, so I'll rob you and claim your bounty." "Big red nose." Luffy grinned greedily and shouted to further provoke Buggy. "What did you say?" "Curse you. Kabeji and Moji, deal with that woman, and I'll take care of this audacious pirate," Buggy said with hatred. He yelled without any concern for the approaching marines, as he launched an attack at Luffy. This man had enraged him and mocked his nose. "Bara bara ho." Buggy launched an attack with knives between his fingers. Luffy looked at it and sighed. "Then die." Luffy heard Buggy's words and, rather than using his devil fruit power, he simply dodged the knives. "Don't run away, you scoundrel," Luffy heard Buggy shout as he easily evaded. "Hey, is that your best speed?" Mocking the clown, Luffy sprinted towards him with his fists. Buggy, seeing him coming, smiled, thinking that this man didn't possess the same speed he had demonstrated when he had appeared next to the cannon earlier. But Buggy, expecting to split his body to escape Luffy's attack, only detached his head, leaving his body exposed. Luffy didn't stop, remembering the same scene from the early chapters of the original story. What an idiot! Luffy couldn't help but taunt as he punched the exposed body with his normal strength, yet his enhanced body and the benefits of his Zoan-type devil fruit made his physical power an effortless weapon. He felt his punch burying into Buggy's abdomen. "I thought the fool would only do this in the anime, but it seems I overestimated him," Luffy thought as he watched Buggy's body in front of him react to his punch. Quickly, the body had shrunk under the explosive impact. Buggy's head, floating in the air, had eyes rolled up as he sputtered, spitting out saliva. Afterward, the body soared like a rocket towards some nearby structures. Boom! Captain Buggy! The pirates cried out as they saw their captain's body flying, while his head suffered in the air. Chapter 17, Orange Town 02. Third-person POV. Orange Town, East Blue. Buggy crashed directly into one of the houses, but his impact force was just enough to crack the structure. Buggy's headless body fell to the ground, and his head, still in the air, displayed all the agony of the impact. "Damn!" was the only muttered word he managed to utter through the pain, unable to breathe as he felt his bones breaking upon impact. "Come on, I expected more from you," Luffy taunted, while Buggy still remained in the air with blank eyes. Meanwhile, Kabeji and Moji, with their lion, approached Yamato, unaware of how the battle between Buggy and Luffy was going. "Ha? So, you guys are my opponents?" Yamato asked calmly. Neither of the two pirates responded as they advanced. Kabeji was rapidly approaching her on a unicycle, wielding a katana, while Moji was even faster, riding Richie. Yamato felt no threat from them. She simply leaned to the side, waiting for the lion to jump at her. Ruwawayer asterisk. The lion leaped with murderous intent towards Yamato. Using her kanabo, she struck the lion while it was suspended in the air. Spectators could hear bones breaking, and the lion made a whimpering sound, never having a chance. Maya awo asterisk. Ah! The lion flew like a bullet with Moji still mounted on top, heading directly for one of the other houses in the town. Boom asterisk. The explosion left all the pirates dressed as clowns wide-eyed, watching one of their main members, along with that lion monster, easily defeated by this strange girl with red and yellow horns. Kabeji stopped his advance at that moment, sweating profusely as he was too nervous to continue after witnessing that scene. He began to pedal backward, torn by indecision about whether he could face this incredibly powerful girl. "Where do you think you're going?" He heard a voice behind him. She had been right in front of him just a moment ago, and he hadn't even seen her move, all while wearing an innocent smile. Kabeji-san. The pirates were horrified to see yet another one of their strongest members cornered. Boom asterisk. Another house was destroyed as Yamato sent him flying alongside his partner. "How boring, they're all so weak," Yamato muttered, making everyone who heard it wonder where this monstrous girl had come from. Seeing that the fight was over and that the other pirates didn't seem willing to continue, Yamato turned her body toward where Luffy was battling Buggy. By this time, the sounds of the ship's cannons had already ceased. Most likely, their crew had reached the island and was closing in on this camp. And Buggy was still making groaning sounds, his head reattaching to his broken body in the wreckage. Luffy let him do that calmly. He quickly shook himself, spat out some saliva, and looked indignantly at the man in the hat. "You bastard, that was a low blow," Buggy shouted with a thin voice. "They say clowns are funny, and I must admit, you do have a strong body to remain conscious after that attack," Luffy said with a calm smile, trying to provoke the man in front of him. "Yamato, can you handle the rest of the crew?" Luffy yelled to Yamato. "While I deal with this big-nosed, ugly, and unstylish clown." Luffy smiled at Buggy, releasing smoke as he said all that once again. "You bastard, I'll kill you." Buggy, if he had any fear due to the man's strength in front of him, his anger had blinded him to it. His hatred fueled his actions as he charged at the man, his waist separating into halves. With his leg split, it began spinning toward Luffy, just like in the anime, with a blade attached to the front of his boot. "Bara bara, senbei." Luffy, seeing it coming his way, simply dodged it. Buggy's attacks kept coming, and Luffy easily evaded those spinning legs. "Ha!" Luffy noticed knives flying his way. He raised his hand, and a firebolt shot towards the knives. The metal disintegrated upon contact with the scorching substance. "Purple flames? What kind of fruit is this?" Buggy couldn't help but exclaim. But the clown wasn't intimidated by this power, as he had a sadistic grin on his face, and his arm had no hand on it. Luffy had already noticed that the missing hand was still on his back, holding a knife, but he patiently waited for Buggy to make his move. "Die!" Buggy screamed as his hand flew toward Luffy. Buggy, seeing that Luffy was not dodging, smiled sadistically. However, his grin faded as his dagger struck the man's skin, failing to penetrate despite passing through his pirate mantle. "Is that all you've got?" Luffy's voice broke the silence as he asked calmly. "EHHH? Are you a monster?" Buggy shouted in fear this time. "A man like you shouldn't be surprised, considering everything you witnessed before starting your own crew, clown," Luffy taunted, noting Buggy's surprise. "Don't tell me you know." Buggy was now nervous, as his past was a delicate matter for him. "Buggy, you're a disappointment. Attacking and robbing civilians in the weakest sea? And to think you were once aboard that ship. Luffy spoke in a serious tone. Ha? Who are you? How do you know that? Buggy seemed even more nervous now. I've already told you who I am. My name is Monkey D. Luffy. The man who will conquer the seas. Do you see this hat? Luffy took it from his back. I made a promise to Shanks, and I intend to keep it. This statement made Buggy widen his eyes considerably. That's the same hat Shanks used. No wonder it looked so familiar. He exclaimed with his voice in a high-pitched tone. While Shanks is an emperor in the New World, you're here, abusing civilians. Luffy was genuinely disappointed in Buggy. The clown had become just another pirate, caught in the cycle. Without saying more, Luffy grabbed Buggy's hand that held the knife, which was still suspended on his back, and slapped it. Ouch! That hurts! Buggy couldn't help but cry out. Shaking his head in disappointment, Luffy advanced toward Buggy, who didn't even have time to react before taking a punch to the face, immediately knocking him out. All the pirates present were left stunned as their captain was sent flying into a city building once again. Boom asterisk. What? Captain Buggy was defeated. The chorus of voices erupted. Yamato, finish off the rest. Luffy ordered Yamato, who was still taking down the fleeing pirates with ease, moving faster. Yamato, now using all her speed, disappeared from the area and began moving among the remaining unconscious pirates, swiftly knocking them out. In a short time, the whole place was filled with pirates on the ground, unconscious and groaning in pain. Luffy, satisfied with that, turned his gaze to the cage where the girl named Nami was. The girl had a bewildered look, not fully comprehending what was happening. Yo! Luffy announced his presence as he walked over to her, pulling her out of her dazed state. Nami, still extremely surprised, looked at the tall man in front of her without knowing what to say. She had been expecting her death just moments ago, but now she was alive, facing these strange people who had appeared out of nowhere and defeated the pirates with such ease. Hi. Hello? She stammered in front of this relentless man. Chapter 18, Orangetown 03. Third-person POV. Orangetown, East Blue. What's your name? This was the first thing Luffy asked as he greeted the girl in front of the cell. Nanami, she replied with a hint of nervousness. Well, Nami, you're free now, Luffy said as he unlocked her cell and opened the door. Hey, why is everyone already defeated? A frustrated Zoro's voice echoed as he rushed in, ready for a fight, scanning for any standing enemies. Ah, sorry, it seems we were faster, Luffy said, freeing the girl with an embarrassed smile. Seconds later, the place was filled with the entire crew, appearing one after another. It looks like you took care of everyone without any problems, Kuina grumbled, observing about 30 unconscious bodies on the ground and some damaged buildings. So strong. Luffy-sama and Yamato-sama took care of all the bad guys? Shirahoshi asked in amazement. She hadn't witnessed their battle. A mermaid? Nami noticed Shirahoshi, who had flown in with the group. She recognized her as a mermaid because Shirahoshi's tail was partially visible beneath her dress at the moment. Nami studied the princess for a moment before she noticed the other peculiar members of the group, such as Bippo, the bear dressed in beach attire, and Megalo, the shark that floated in midair, encased in a bubble of air, seemingly breathing oxygen just like any land-dwelling animal. Nami's full attention remained on the timid girl with a tail, as her previous experiences with fishmen had not been positive, and she had heard the stories about the mermaids that Arlong and others had told. Seeing a hint of anger in Nami's eyes as she glanced at Shirahoshi, Luffy decided to speak up. Yes, she's one of our crew members. We are the Straw Hat Pirates, Luffy confidently declared with a smile, expressing his pride. Nami, now outside the cell, couldn't help but give the peculiar group an odd look before Luffy's words sank in. She realized that, aside from the mermaid, there was a bear walking like a human and a shark floating in the air in a bubble of air. The shark seemed to be breathing oxygen just like a land-dwelling creature. When Luffy's declaration about being pirates finally registered, Nami's gaze turned icy, but the earlier confusion had left her too disoriented to process it properly. Wait, where do you think you're going?" Luffy asked as he suddenly interjected with an amused smile, sensing Nami's desire to distance herself from the group. Nami stopped for a moment, expecting the pirates, including Luffy, to do something to her. With a mischievous smile, Luffy continued, while the others observed the interaction, curious about their captain's intentions. "Don't worry, you can go, but you have to go in that direction. Everything related to the pirates is now ours," Luffy declared, well aware that Nami had been heading toward the pirate ship to steal their treasures. "But the pirates have my things," Nami protested, raising her voice in alarm and dissatisfaction. "As I said, the pirates' belongings are now ours. You're free to leave, and we'll take their things as our spoils of victory." "That's how pirates operate," Luffy stated matter-of-factly. He didn't seem to care much about what Nami thought. He was convinced that, no matter how noble her cause might be in saving her village and its inhabitants, she would betray him in the end. Luffy thought the original Luffy had been too soft on her. Kuina and Lami raised their eyebrows at this, as they had heard Luffy mention earlier that Nami would be a member of their crew. However, before they could raise the issue, Nami spoke up. "Wait. You are pirates, right?" Nami suddenly found herself with only one option. Luffy looked at her indifferently, but there was a hidden gleam of amusement in his eyes. "Yes, I just said that," Luffy said plainly. "Why don't you let me join your crew? I'm a great navigator," Nami announced. This piqued everyone's interest. Some could see that Nami was more interested in the treasures, but they kept quiet, waiting for Luffy's response. "A navigator," Luffy mused, rubbing his chin. "I don't know. I think we actually need a housekeeper. If there were one around, maybe I'd take them under my flag and onto my ship, or we could conquer a lot of gold and money," Luffy muttered aloud. "We clearly need a navigator," the entire crew thought simultaneously but refrained from speaking out, hoping to see what Luffy had in mind. "A housekeeper." Nami's face contorted with anger. "Anyway, everyone, let's gather all their treasures," Luffy ordered as he redirected his attention to his crew, seemingly dismissing Ami, Lami and Bippo, collect all the treasure from the ship. "I heard they have a map of the Grand Line," Luffy instructed, and they headed to Buggy's ship, which was parked at the port and hadn't been damaged by cannon fire. "I'm a great housekeeper," Nami quickly shouted when she heard this, rushing toward Luffy. "Great, we have a new crew member," Luffy announced, his voice dripping with irony. But nobody said anything, patiently waiting for their captain to reveal his plan for the girl who obviously had her eye on their treasure. "Show more enthusiasm," Nami scolded him, noting the sarcasm in his voice. "We have a housekeeper." Bippo was the only one who spoke, earning an angry glare from Nami. "Sorry," the bear quickly replied, cowering under her disapproving gaze. "Why are you apologizing so easily?" Nami was bewildered, shouting as she wondered why this talking bear was so quick to apologize just from her glare. Kuina sighed, wondering whether Nami was really seeing anyone as normal in this group. Luffy had now recruited this woman as a housekeeper, but it was clear he was teasing her while she clearly had her sights set on stealing their treasure. Nami couldn't decide who was worse among them. Luffy received no system notification, realizing that Nami hadn't genuinely joined the crew but had merely spoken in the heat of the moment. "That's good. It means that everyone who has joined the crew has genuinely put their faith in our flag. Will you eventually put your faith in me and our crew, Nami?" Luffy pondered internally, even as he looked at the girl in front of him. "Now, while Lami and Bippo are getting the treasure, Yamato, Zoro, Kuina, and Nami, you should tie up all the pirates, including Buggy. Zoro, he's a devil fruit user, so I want you to lock him inside a reinforced barrel, as simply tying him up won't help much," Luffy said. Luffy could have purchased Sea Prism stone handcuffs in the system store, but they were expensive, and he wanted to save money. "Yes, Captain," Zoro replied, and everyone nodded in agreement, well, almost everyone. "Wait. Let me help collect the treasure," Nami exclaimed, earning dubious looks from all of them who were aware that her real intention was to steal the treasure. Luffy smiled at the woman, who was nicknamed Cat Burglar in the original series. "No, you're the housekeeper now." I'll leave the treasure to the ship's doctor and the crew's assistant, Luffy said calmly. Wait. Nami was about to speak, but Luffy ignored her and continued. Shirahoshi, come with me. Let's visit the town so you can see how humans live on the surface. Luffy declared as he walked ahead. Yes, Luffy-sama, the excited mermaid followed her captain, eager to visit a human town for the first time. Megalo followed closely behind. Chapter 19, Orange Town 04. Third-person POV. Orange Town, East Blue. While the crew was organizing everything at the port related to the captured pirates, Luffy, Shirahoshi, and Megalo were walking through the empty town at the moment. So this is how a human town works? It's different, but it reminds me a lot of the houses on Fishman Island. The 1.70-meter-tall mermaid spoke, admiring the surroundings. I don't see much difference between humans and fishmen, to be honest. Apart from the respiratory system for breathing underwater, you seem to have the same physiological conditions as humans. Luffy said as he walked with the princess. Although I have no idea how mermaids reproduce. Luffy couldn't help but murmur as he curiously examined her tail. Sharky sharky! Megalo exclaimed while munching on some plants in a house's garden. That's not seaweed, Megalo. It's better to wait and eat it when we get back and have a big feast, Luffy warned him, as Megalo didn't seem to like the plants he had tried and promptly spat them out. Shishishishishi, Shirahoshi laughed alongside, amused by her finned friend's antics. Why is the town so empty? Did the bad men drive away the other humans? She innocently asked. Yes, unfortunately, that's how things work everywhere in the world. The strong prey on the weak. Luffy spoke calmly. What's that up ahead, Luffy-sama? Shirahoshi said, looking a few dozen meters ahead, where there was a destroyed house. In front of it lay an injured dog with blood matted in its fur, lying on the ground amid the wreckage. Did this happen before I got here? Luffy commented to himself, a bit surprised, as he knew that in the original story, Moji's giant lion, Richie, destroyed the pet shop, and Chachu fought back bravely. However, it seemed that this event occurred while he was on his way to the marine ship. It appears that with my presence in this world as the new Luffy, many things are changing, including characters with different genders and ages, as well as some events unfolding differently. It seems I can't rely on my previous knowledge anymore, or trust it too firmly, Luffy mumbled internally. What's wrong, Luffy-sama? Shirahoshi couldn't help but ask when she heard Luffy speak softly. Nothing, princess. Let's go, that animal needs help if it's still alive. Luffy said as he hurried forward. Yes, Luffy-sama. The mermaid followed him closely. Upon reaching the scene, the first thing Luffy did was remove some debris from on top of the dog. Shirahoshi stood in shock, her hand over her mouth, seeing the animal in such a wretched state. Well, he's still alive, but he needs treatment quickly, Luffy said, speaking to no one in particular. He opened the system store and retrieved some healing fluids to prevent infection of the wounds at this moment. Luffy had no medical expertise, but he figured it was the basic step before having Lami, who would take care of fully healing the dog. Who are you, and what? What is that woman with a tail? A new voice appeared nearby, a shocked elderly man who had observed Luffy tending to Chachu and had dropped a bottle near the injured animal. But he was even more astonished by the beauty of Shirahoshi, who had a pink tail instead of legs. He had no idea what a mermaid was in this world. Who are you, old man? Luffy asked, looking at the elderly man seriously. While he might know who this man was, Luffy knew he couldn't trust his canonical knowledge too much. The elderly man before him matched the anime's description, but he looked quite wretched now, injured, with a broken arm, and hanging onto a spear he was using as a makeshift crutch. This indicated that he had a tough fight before Luffy and the others arrived. I'm the mayor. I was fighting against Moji and his lion with this dog at my side, but we lost miserably. I woke up recently from the sound of a loud explosion. Are you responsible for that? What happened to Buggy the pirate? The mayor asked. That's terrible. Shirahoshi couldn't help but comment with a sad expression before Luffy spoke. We defeated them and intend to claim the bounty on their heads, Luffy said. So, you're bounty hunters? The mayor asked, somewhat relieved. No, we're pirates, Luffy said simply as he picked up Chowchu. HM? What will you do with Chowchu? The mayor couldn't help but ask. Luffy turned to him and said, I'm going to recruit him into my crew, of course. Luffy smiled confidently after those words. What? Luffy-sama? Sharky? Quiet down, Megalo, you're not much different. Luffy couldn't help but grumble in response to the shark, who was breathing outside the water. A shark that can fly and breathe oxygen. The man had huge eyes, much like Shirahoshi, after hearing about Megalo. This old man is quite clueless. Luffy exclaimed internally. What's the use of those glasses, old man, if you can't even see a shark flying next to us since the moment you saw us? Luffy mumbled. You say that as if it's normal, the mayor exclaimed indignantly. In any case, Luffy returned from his stroll with the mermaid to the pirate camp that Buggy's crew had set up, half of which had been destroyed. At the same time, an old man followed Luffy, wanting answers about why he was taking his friend's dog. Old man, I'm not going to force him, but I'm confident he'll come with us, Luffy said simply before meeting the others. You finally came back, Kuina said, watching him arrive with the others. I see you finished everything here, Luffy commented, surveying the area. There were tied-up bandits in one corner, still unconscious, a giant lion with the man who tamed it, and the swordsman from Buggy's crew in another. Meanwhile, a chest was constantly bouncing beside Zoro. Release me. You have felt the wrath of Buggy. They could hear the muffled voice of the clown inside the object. Ha 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 ha. Good job, Luffy praised them with a small laugh. There were quite a few treasures on their ships as well. Lami said, raising 2 bags filled with them, while a woman with orange hair stared at the bags with dollar signs in her eyes and drool dripping from her mouth. Good job. Thank you, Captain. I'm sorry. Ignoring the bear's apology, Luffy brought Chowchu to Lami. Can you take care of him? Lami looked at the dog's condition and nodded. Of course. Leaving Chowchu with Lami, Luffy walked over to the treasures. A girl was still gazing idly at the bags, her eyes shimmering with the thought of all the money. Zoro looked at her with disbelief, wondering if she had any idea what she was doing in front of everyone. Before the girl could react, Luffy moved next to her and touched the bags. The treasures vanished instantly. You've added 10 million berries to the system store. What? Where's the treasure? What did you do to them? Nami cried out in shock, as if someone had taken a child from its mother right in front of her. The treasure has been stored in the cruise funds, he simply said. The others who witnessed it simply thought that Luffy had shrunk the valuable items, as he hadn't explained the system yet. Sighing and ignoring a very desperate Nami by his side, questioning what he had done, Luffy turned to the rest of his crew, who were now paying attention to their captain. Chapter 20 Orange Town 05. Orange Town, East Blue. Is he going to be alright? The mayor asked as he inspected the dog being bandaged by Lami's side. Yes, old man, you've asked that 12 times already. Worry about yourself and don't bother me anymore. Lami was irritated with the old man, who was now wearing a cast on his broken arm but still concerned about the dog that the captain had asked her to take care of. After that, seeing that her job was done here, she turned to her captain. Now we need to go over our next steps, Luffy announced, so she stepped back to see what Luffy had planned for them. Arriving at a quieter spot, away from the screams coming from Buggy in the barrel, the crew formed a circle to listen to Luffy speak in the middle of it. First, we took some treasures from these pirates, but it's not enough, he said calmly. That's why I also want the bounty on their heads. As soon as he said these words, everyone looked confused. But we're pirates. I doubt the Marines would give us money, even if we turn in a pirate with a price on their head, Zoro said curiously. You're right, Zoro, I wouldn't be surprised if there's already a bounty on my head after I killed a Marine commander, took over a Marine base, and stole one of their ships, Luffy said calmly. But apart from Zoro and me, they have no knowledge of you guys, as hardly anyone here has been seen by the Marines as part of our pirate crew. Luffy reasoned and continued. In that sense, I'm going to have Lamy and Bepo set up near a marine base to turn in these men. They'll be known as bounty hunters, exchanging the heads of the pirates we capture on our journey until we leave this sea. Lamy understood Luffy's reasoning and nodded. Before she could ask about their next meeting point, Luffy continued, noticing her evident confusion. Don't worry about that, Yamato here will make Vivre cards for us, so we can find each other anytime using them, Luffy said, raising some eyebrows while most of them didn't understand what he was talking about. This? Great idea, my Luffy. Yamato said with a smile, as she could create Vivre cards. Vivre cards? Kuina asked, looking puzzled, as she wasn't aware of their existence. Also known as life cards, made from a part of someone's body, typically their fingernails, they move toward the person they represent no matter where you are in the world. They also represent the user's life, and if it starts to burn, it means the original person is nearing death. If the paper disappears in flames, it means the person has died, Lamy explained calmly, earning many surprised looks. Kuina, Zoro, Nami, and even Shirahoshi had no knowledge of this. So I'm going to turn in Buggy's crew for their bounty and then we'll meet again with the paper, right? Lamy asked. Exactly, that way you'll become our unofficial bounty hunter, Luffy said with a smile, and Nami could be seen with dollar signs replacing her eyes at this idea. After planning how they would do this, Luffy turned his attention to Chaochu, who had awakened as they discussed their plans. Nami was the only one who stayed quiet in the group. Yo, Chaochu. Luffy greeted the bandaged dog beside the mayor after separating from his group, and the elderly man hadn't left the dog's side all this time. Oh. The white-furred dog, one of their saviors, barked. Luffy-sama, do you really plan to recruit the dog? Shirahoshi asked from the side with a happy look, as the dog had survived. What? He intends to recruit a dog? Lamy exclaimed comically when she heard this. EHHH? Both Kuina, Zoro, Bepo, and Nami exclaimed in unison. Ha 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 ha. He seems to be quite strong. Yamato commented enthusiastically. Look at him, he's just an ordinary injured dog. Nami made a comical face as she shouted in disbelief at both the captain and the vice-captain of the group. Oh. Chaochu didn't seem too happy about what was being said about him. Hey, buddy, calm down, let's talk, okay? Luffy said calmly as he heard everything the dog was saying. Wait, can you talk to him? Zoro couldn't help but ask with a raised eyebrow. I don't know why, but yes, I can. I can't understand Megalo, but I can hear what Chaochu is trying to say. Luffy said, scratching his head in this dilemma. Without the voice of all things, which is still locked, I can say that maybe it's due to my mythical Zoan form, as in its final form, despite having the body of a human with horns and wings. I also have a face that resembles a pitbull. This is amazing, Luffy-sama. I can't understand him very well, unlike Megalo. Sharky. Megalo says he can understand Chaochu-sama too, Shirahoshi said again. I see. Anyway, I'm going to talk to him. Luffy went to the injured dog and began to speak with him quietly in that corner. To the onlookers, it appeared that Luffy was talking to the dog as if it were a person, and the dog was responding with barks. Whisper asterisk. Oh. Whisper asterisk. Oh. Whisper asterisk. Oh. That's great. Luffy exclaimed happily after some time. While almost everyone was stunned by what was happening, the mayor standing nearby was conflicted. What's going on here? Zoro exclaimed, looking lost. Ha, we have a new crewmate right now. Luffy celebrated in front of everyone as he stood up. With the exception of Yamato, who had enhanced hearing and observation haki, the conversation was a mystery to all the others. Don't look at me like that. I just told him to join us. I'd help him get stronger. He lost the only precious thing to him, the store of his former owner, so he felt quite helpless. I offered my help to make him stronger so he never has to feel like that again, and to have the adventures he can have on our ship. Luffy spoke with a smile. I understand, and what about him having a harem of female dogs? Yamato asked, confused in front of everyone. Don't mention that. Luffy shouted with a bit of embarrassment when she brought that up. Oh. Don't agree with her. Everyone looking at this scenario facepalmed. This captain is really crazy. Offering a harem to a dog so that he can join the crew? They all exclaimed in their minds. I didn't exactly offer that directly, I just said he could get power, fame, and some female dogs and adventures on my ship. Luffy lamented internally. Anyway, let's get ready to set sail, we have more islands to visit. Luffy ordered, and a part of the crew started dragging the prisoners onto the marine ship. Meanwhile, Luffy went to Buggy's ship and shrank it to fit in his pocket. Would Kaya buy this ship? Luffy wondered as he stored the ship in his pocket. Once everything was ready, they began to head back to the marine ship with all the loot and prisoners. As they boarded the marine ship, they heard a voice from the direction of the island. Hey! You better take good care of Chaochu, or I'll come after you at a CA, the mayor shouted from the port as they started to set sail. Don't worry, old man, the next news you'll hear about this dog will be his wanted poster. Luffy replied, placing his hat on his head. As if a dog would get a wanted poster, the mayor shouted comically. Goodbye, mayor. See you next time. Luffy smiled at the only old man on the dock. Oh. Chaochu was next to him, not forgetting to say goodbye. Now, what's the plan? Lamy asked. Let's head toward the island of Syrup Village. I don't know the exact direction because the marine map is confusing, but I have a way to get to the location. Doesn't anyone here know how to navigate? Nami muttered unconsciously. Wait a moment. You don't have a navigator on the ship? Nami asked out loud in surprise, wanting to apply for the position since she was just a maid here, and while trying to steal from them, a better position would present a better opportunity. Luffy had a playful gleam in his eyes when he heard this. Why would I need a navigator when I have Zoro? Luffy teased Nami while pointing at Zoro. Zoro? Question mark. Question mark. Question mark. Question mark. Question mark. Me? Zoro was also confused. Of course, pay attention. Zoro, where is Syrup Village? Do you know? Luffy asked Zoro directly. I believe it's that way, Captain. Zoro thought for a moment, scratching his chin, and finally pointed in a direction. You see? Beepo, go to the helmsman and turn the ship in the opposite direction of where Zoro pointed. Ha 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 ha. Ee-hee-hee-ya. Shishi-shishi. Shar-shar-shar-shar. Ziz-ziz-ziz-ziz-ziz. I'm sorry. Hey. This isn't funny. Zoro turned red as everyone was laughing at him. That wraps up this part of the revised version of What If There Was a Different Luffy. Thanks so much for listening. I will try to get the revisions done as soon as possible, so stay tuned for that. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well. See you in the next one.